Good afternoon, everyone, for being present and for staying with us until this last panel discussion on NFT and the significance to charities. I'm David To, I'll be the moderator. I think earlier, Prof actually provided us with some clarity in terms of what NFTs are. So what I'll do now is that I'll start the panel first by going around the panelists for their views. Before taking on some of those live questions, I think we are about close to 10 right now. So maybe firstly to Stanley, I think Singapore SATA has actually utilized NFTs in your operations. Do you mind sharing me with the audience a bit more in terms of the experience? How is it affecting the operation in terms of maybe start by accounting and reporting? And in the process, what were some of the challenges faced by the board and management in this whole process? Stanley?
Fantastic. Thank you, David. And thank you, Prof, for that 20 minutes, 30 minutes presentation that captured a lot of information, which we also considered at SATA. Just by way of a quick background, SATA, as you may know, has been around for 75 years. So this is an organization that has got a very long legacy. And we all started back in the previous pandemic in tuberculosis. So today we're dealing with a different pandemic. The reason why I brought that up is that, while SATA is a fairly old charity, we are also at the same time thinking about future-proofing ourselves. So what's important is that at the end of the day, we're on this journey together with everybody else on the call. We are learning as we go along. Now, NFT is something which we started thinking about as a form of fundraising at the start of the year. So we took this to the board. We spoke to experts. We have several committees to look into the technical, the processes, the risk aspect of NFT. And let me say this is not an easy journey to convince everybody to get on this program. We have got very, how shall I say, savvy people on the board, from business people, from accounting people, from legal people. And not everybody agrees that we need to do this now. Given all the challenges that Prof has mentioned, it is not simple, right? It is not simple, and we're still at a stage where we're experimenting. Having said that, though, we also recognize that it is important to constantly adapt, innovate, and test new grounds. So it's that balance that we're trying to achieve. And how we did it, just as a very kind of quick overview to summarize the last 9 months of work, is that we started out quite ambitious. We wanted to do an NFT auction, raise money, but we realized as we went along, there were many risks that we need to consider and mitigate. And so the first thing is that we put this through the fundraising committee to review all the pros, the cons, the risk. We then put this through another committee of governance, whereby we consider also the tax implications. Right? Because we know that a donation receives certain tax deductions. So would this particular NFT form of fundraising also receive that same treatment? After we received the feedback from IRAS, we then went to MCCY just to get their concurrence that this is something, the process that we have, the approach that we're taking is something that is aligned to their thinking and also for a charity. And then finally, we took this back to the board to say, are we comfortable with doing this for the first time? And let me say that we're taking this in a two-phase approach. The first phase approach is just to dip our toes in and not go the full auction route. The auction route has a lot of other KYC. I think one of the questions mentioned, how do we know the source of funds? Who are the people donating? If it's thousands of people, how are you going to be able to do that? So the first phase we're doing this is that we're going to attach the NFT with zero value to a standard donation. So this approach has gotten a lot of us more comfortable. That it's not about, this let's call it a token that is traded, there's volatility, there is crypto implications. No, what it is, it's just like any gifts, in the old days, you put into a tin can, you get a sticker. So today you get an NFT as you donate. Phase 2 is when we get more comfortable with the process, then we talk about the full auction. So I just want to say two things before I pass it on to the other speakers, is that the most important thing in this whole consideration is ultimately, what is our purpose? What is our purpose as a charity, right? For SATA is delivering healthcare to seniors and vulnerable. And then the second question we ask is, how do we do this in the greatest impact in a sustainable way? So NFT is just another creative, innovative ways that we can raise money amongst many other things that we do. And we'll look into this quite seriously. Thank you, David.
Yeah, thanks, Stanley. We'll come back to you later. There are a couple of questions in the Q&A from the audience, focusing on the tech side of things, as well as also your dealings with the regulators. Without going into the actual details, might be useful later on. I'll come back to you later on to share more about the whole journey in terms of working with the regulators as well as the tax authorities. Maybe later on to you. Maybe I'll turn the now to Hock Lai. I think for Hock Lai, question to you really is the Blockchain Association of Singapore. You've done 2 NFT charity auctions in 2021. So would you mind again sharing with the audience the experience of doing this, some of the difficulties maybe, and how you overcame this, and eventually whether you will be able to achieve that outcome?
Thanks, David. Yeah. So the Blockchain Association Singapore, last year, we did 2 NFT charity auction. I believe we were the first to do the NFT charity auction in Singapore. First with the NDC UK Fund in September, and subsequently followed by Straits Times School Pocket Money Fund. In total, we raised a total of slightly more than $420,000. It's not a simple journey. We learned a lot, so we are here to share. But I think most importantly, we have to look at why are we resorting to raise funds using NFT. For the association, other than doing good, as a blockchain association, we would like to catalyze or promote the use of blockchain technology. So last year, NFT was still pretty new. And we saw that it is an opportunity for the association to do something new. That's why we partner with NTUC UK Fund. And of course, there are many studies that have shown that traditionally, people tend to donate more if they get something tangible in return. So NFT is one way whereby the donors, they will actually get an NFT. So this is one of the reasons. The other thing is that we also saw that other non-profit organizations, their experience with NFT donation. We read about the case study of Orangutan Outreach. They tried crypto donation, and then their research outcome is that there's very few overlap between traditional donors and crypto donors. And last but not least, is really we read a report from the Giving Block, which is a platform that enables organizations to accept crypto donation. Based on their database, right, a crypto donor tend to donate 82 times more than the traditional donor. The traditional donor in US, right, donates about, if I recall, about $128. But the crypto donor, on average, they donate about slightly more than $10,000. So with that in mind, right, we set about doing the donation. I think the very important part is really that the NFT audience will be the young people born after 1980s, 1990s, or even 2000s. So that is very clear because these are the people who are interested in digital assets. And especially last year, many of them got crypto rich due to the very buoyant crypto market, unlike now. And second thing is that NFT obviously is a novel form of fundraising that will attract them. But we also recognize that likely the NFT item will have to be from influencers or celebrities. Like we saw that this lady in Singapore, right, Irene Zhao, she launched her NFT collection and managed to have a few, I think up to $7 million in transaction. So for our case, right, our first charity auction, NFT charity auction with NTUC WeCare Fund, we actually gotten Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Tan Chuan Jin, to donate his travel photographies, and we minted it as the NFTs. So that's one thing. And the other thing is about the onboarding process. Because to donate an NFT is not a trivial process, especially to people who are not crypto savvy, because you have to at least set up your crypto wallet, and due to the kind of blockchain that we use, which is more green, they have to configure it again. So what we did is that we actually came up with a very detailed step-by-step guide published on the internet, and we also get ready a pool of volunteers who are ready to handhold any potential donors. One interesting thing that we realized is that some of the donors make it as a family activity because it's about imparting the spirit of doing good. So one of the donor actually engaged the help of his son who just graduated, and they did the bidding as a family exercise. So next, let me go to the risk, right? I think the first risk is really about the charity organization have to think about, are they ready to handle crypto as a donation? Because cryptocurrencies, they are very volatile in prices. So if you are ready to accept crypto as a donation, you have to decide, do you want to hold it, or you want to immediately convert the cryptos into fiat almost in real time? And there are many licensed operators in Singapore that can do that role. Because I think there was a case study, I think if I remember correctly, Wharton School from the University of Pennsylvania, they received a 5 million Bitcoin donation, and they were deciding whether to convert it or to hold it. But eventually they decided to hold it, because the donor actually guarantees that ultimately, if there's any shortfall because of the price drop in Bitcoin, the donor will actually plug the gap. So there is a guarantee. But I think for most charity, it might make more sense for them to immediately convert that into fiat. And for our case, right, for the two donations, actually the two organizers are not ready to handle crypto. So we do what Prof. David shared, the Web 2.5 method. We actually minted some crypto tokens. We call it the CARE tokens. So everyone who registered, they will be given 100,000 worth of these CARE tokens, and they use that to bid. The winning bid will actually then transfer the winning amount in fiat to the charity organization. So for both our cases, we did not handle crypto. The second risk the charity organization have to consider is really the money laundering and terrorist financing risk. And for us, how we manage that is that our platform comes with KYC, know your client. So we actually do due diligence on all the donors. In fact, I think for the two exercises, we have more than 4,000 people who registered on the platform. To be frank, this actually adds friction to the whole process. So it's really for people who are really very keen to try out this process. They will go through this AML process. The third risk the organization have to consider is really risk around intellectual property, because most of the time, in fact, implicitly, most of the NFT items only comes with a license for the winning donor to use the NFT item for personal consumption. They can not use it for commercial purposes. So this is an implicit part. So for us, we work with our legal firm, Drew and Napier, to come up with the proper contract, both to the contributor and to the donors, on what are the rights they have when they donate the NFT, and what are the rights to the winning donor when they get the NFT. The last risk I want to talk about will be the from the angle of ESG, or more particularly is the angle of climate, because we understand that not all communities are receptive to crypto because of the carbon footprint concerns. For example, early this year, World Wildlife Fund UK, they attempted to do an NFT charity auction, but there was a backlash from the community because the community feel that this is an exercise that actually encourage use of crypto that actually generates carbon. Because if you look at the statistics, right, the most popular platform for minting NFT items is actually Ethereum. I checked the latest statistics. About 46% of all NFT items are minted on Ethereum. And Ethereum actually, they consume, in 2021, they consume about 100 terawatt hours of electricity. So if you compare that, right, Singapore only consume about, the whole of Singapore only consume about 50 terawatt hours. So it's twice of what Singapore is consuming. Having said that, Ethereum is moving to a much more energy efficient model in the next few weeks. They will only consume 0.05% of what they previously consumed. So there's an angle to think of. For us, we use a blockchain platform called Polygon. Again, it uses a consensus algorithm that is quite energy efficient. So that's how we address the concern from the climate angle. Yeah, so these are our experience from running the two NFT charity auctions. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Apply. Thanks for sharing quite a fair bit of detail and learnings for the audience as well, the experience of the auction, and also the 4 areas to actually look out for when doing this. So maybe I'll pass on to Prof now. Your earlier marketing seems to have been quite effective. There's been question asked about fintech costs at SUSS and whether there's any funding available for that. But that's the appetizer. But following on what Hotline has mentioned about KYC, AML, would you like to add on based on your experience as well from what you have researched on? And I think the second point is also, a bit more in terms of the sustainability concern. Yeah, Prof?
Yeah, I think everybody is learning by doing at this moment. So including KYC and so on. I think what Stanley has mentioned is actually excellent, that you have to start somewhere, right? And KYC for crypto is not going to be very easy topic to handle, even for stable tokens. They call it stable coins, right? So if somebody donate USDC or USDT or XSGD to you, then you still need to do the usual KYC, and you will probably have to channel whatever through a licensed institution, because you can only deal with a licensed institution as a charitable organization. So those are all the consideration that you need to have until there's a time where we have DID, decentralized identity, where globally somebody will have like a sync pass globally, right? So whenever somebody donate, they just show you a DID, and that is done immediately. But we haven't reached that stage yet. So until we reach that stage, my own view is that your compliance cost is going to go up as time goes on, until we find the technology itself can catch up. And that is something that you need to take into consideration. And I think what Stanley mentioned is that NFT has got no use if it's not traded. NFT has got no use if you cannot use to play games. There's no utility value. But you have to start somewhere. So there is always a trade-off that you've got to learn early and not to worry and conform to whatever KYC is needed. And in the process, then you become a stakeholder in the conversation with the authority. Because without understanding, you can't go to the table and negotiate with MAS or MCCY or whoever, right? You need to demonstrate your knowledge and provide solution to the regulators to say that, hey, I think this is what you're trying to solve, and I found a solution. And that is only by doing it to understand and say, I found some way to solve this problem. And this has to do with some of the questions to ask about what is the intrinsic value on NFTs that we need to reflect in our book. What's the book value? How do we do that? David, you're in a better position than me to answer that. But as I mentioned, we are still at the subjective value level that as academic, we have come out a lot modest to have an objective level, but it's still different where you become accounting standards. A long way away because the accountants need to understand, need to come to SUSS and teach and share with us and discuss with us more. Then we are able to find solutions. So we are at the stage that we all have to get involved, not because this is the fastest way to raise funds. We're all getting involved because we are all wanted to have a easy way to do things, but because we know that in the long term, it is a way going forward, right? And as Hok Lai and I think there's somebody who asked a very good questions. What about sustainability? What about SDG goal? Why are we doing all this blockchain? Okay, I'm an economist, so I will look at the cost-benefit analysis angle. When you look at the whole world, that what is going on, why we are involved in charitable work, is because we are filling the gaps, right? And if you look at yourself as using NFT to fill the gaps, then you're beginning to see the cost and benefit. Web 1 and Web 2 will continue to use electricity as well, and they will continue. Web 3 leapfrogging will probably have a marginal increase in electricity. No doubt everybody have a node, but some of these nodes are actually licensed nodes eventually, right? So you'll see that marginal increase in the energy consumption, okay, that we are talking about is going to solve a lot of problems that we cannot solve before. And that's important. What are the problems that we can solve with blockchain? Number one, since 2005, we are talking about sustainability. We've been talking about having carbon trading. We need to have carbon price. How are you going to have a carbon price and a decent discussion where we don't even know how to measure the carbon emission in an objective way? Okay, that is the first one. You can measure after the fact, but it's too late. We could have disaster after that. So when you try to measure the carbon CO2E, you take it at E as estimated. Then it is the blockchain that comes to the rescue. Because when all the supply chain has got blockchain, then you are able to look at each stage of your production process and your logistic transfer process to assign a quantitative value to the carbon trading for each production process. And no country and no company can cheat about it because it's immutable. And at the moment, we can talk to each other and we can have disclosure by public listed company, but we all know that this can be gamed. But once you have blockchain, it's immutable, it's transparent, it's traceable, then everybody will start to treat the carbon trading price seriously and trade it the way that it should be. So I think we need to look at it in a very big perspective. And the other thing I would like to warn is that moving from proof of work, which is energy consumption, to proof of stake can be a dangerous move too. Because when you move from one consensus algorithm to another consensus algorithm just to please other people, you have to beware that everything we do, there's no free lunch in this world. There is a trade-off, which means that when you move from proof of work to proof of stake, you're giving up something. That something is that in the virtual world, we are here to do privacy protection. We are here to ensure that it's secure. And I can tell you from my own view, proof of stake is not as safe because it's less transparent. One fewer group of people involved. The risk factor is less. So there is a lot of technology risk angle that we have to look at. It is not as simple as, wow, the energy consumption is huge. That you have to do a cost benefit analysis. And first you got to ask, if the whole world is using blockchain, what is the maximum emission done by that? Then how there is a peak, there's a peak carbon emission if everybody is using blockchain. Then we find ways to reduce the peak to a lower level. That's the first step. Then we talk about carbon neutral. That's the second step. But to jump to carbon neutral without even knowing if the whole world, whether you like it or not, will all be doing Web 1 and Web 2 and all doing metaverse, Web 2 or Web 3, blockchain or not blockchain, you will still have higher energy consumption. Who is doing those mathematics? That's a good question. Then, once you know what's the max carbon emission, then we can work towards lowering the carbon emission. That is the approach that China is using. Okay. Back to you, David.
Yep, thanks, Prof. But I still need you to answer this question.
Oh.
Is there the courses? Is it available at SUSS? And is there any funding? Since
I think there are bachelor courses that Singaporean definitely funded. You know, we have more than 10,000 part-time students. Okay, we have the whole university have over 20 courses in blockchain for undergraduate, for masters, and for Doctor of Business Administration. So it's up to you, bachelor, master, or DBA. I don't think there's any funding for DBA at this moment. For the bachelor and masters, there are. And most of the courses that we conduct on sussblockchain.com, they are free. There are thousands of hours of conferences and sharing, and 2 days lesson, 8-day lessons. They're all free. Do come to our classes, which are free. We believe in paying it forward. We did it because during the difficult times, we felt that people need to empower themselves. So we conduct these courses for free, issue the certificate, and when they have jobs, they donate to our NIF fund. So we believe in paying it forward as well. So do come to all these 2 days and 8 days free courses to learn how to do programming and so on. We don't charge a single cent, and you get free lunch and tea as well.
Yeah, thanks, Prof. and SUSS. So encourage the audience here, make the best use of all these complimentary and free courses. So maybe going back to Stanley, to an earlier question, maybe you can expound a bit more your experience dealing with the tax authorities as well as the regulators in the areas of interest of the audience. I think there are quite a few questions asked about from a tax perspective, and also in terms of how do you then make the regulators a bit more comfortable before embarking on this journey. Stanley?
Thanks, David. I just wanted to say that listening to all the speakers, I do get a sense this is quite overwhelming. This topic is quite big. There's so much to learn. I want to bring it back into the way we look at it at SATA. We look at SATA as 3 big mountains that we climb daily. The first one is about impact. How much impact do we make to society for the beneficiaries that we serve? The second one is about sustainability. And sustainability is not just ESG, but also financial sustainability. So I will put the NFT experiment inside the sustainability section, because how do we continue to raise funds with a different group of donors into the future? And I think Hock Lai talked about how there's a high proportion of donors who are not your traditional donors, but like the NFT route. And my third mountain, which I would say is probably the most important mountain, is all about governance. So I want to start with that first, responding to your question, David, because end of the day is the governance structure that we have in place that allows us to analyze this whole experiment in a way that would give comfort to the regulators that we speak to. So that's the starting point. The starting point is that which committee do we have with the necessary experts to look at the various risks that we've talked about today, from KYC to technology risk, a lot of things, right? So many things to consider. Do we have the right experts to look at this? That's the first point. The second point is once we have that looked at, we will then make a proposal to the board to say, are we all comfortable with this? Now, at the level of the board, there are different people with different expertise, different perspectives. And I want to be totally transparent because we're all learning here. There are a significant portion of the board who are simply saying, why do we need to do this? We're so comfortable, the traditional route, we are financially stable at the moment. There is no need to take all these risks. It sounds so scary, right? But the other portion of the board feels that this is 25 years, and the first steps has to be taken now, right? Taken now, which means that we do it in a way that we feel safe, we do it in a way that we all feel comfortable, and at the same time get the proper clearance from tax, proper clearance from MCCYS to check in whether our process is correct, and also more importantly as well, to check in with the experts in the industry. So, speaking to Hotlai's association, just to get some examples of the past when, he's done 2 of these already, to see how that went and how can we improve on the process. So I think these are all very important considerations, but I want to also say this, there must be room to make mistakes, right? We embarked on this journey last year. The idea was mooted, we talked about this, but got really serious at the start of this year, where we passed it through the committees, speak to the authorities, and then finally have the board's concurrence to proceed. Now, when I say proceed, they also want to do it in a way, or rather we want to do it in a way, in a phased approach. Phase 1, as I mentioned, normal donation with an NFT attached. Phase 2, when we're more comfortable with the process, iron out the kinks, let's go for the full one, right? But having said all that, I just want to remind everybody that I think what's very important for all the charities that you sit on is that try to understand from your perspective, are you ready for it? NFT, as Prof said, takes you 15 minutes or maybe less to do it. Anybody can do it, go and mint an NFT. But what happens afterwards? How do you collect the money? How do you do KYC? Well, there's so many things to consider. So don't just jump into it thinking that this is a great source of potential donors, but the whole journey has to be analyzed in a more thorough fashion. Thanks, David.
Yep, thanks, Stanley. Maybe over to Hotlai. I think, again, through your whole experience in the auction, anything to share in terms of your, experience from a tax deduction, dealing with the tax authorities' perspective that you want to add on to what Stanley has shared earlier?
Okay, like I earlier shared, we did it the Web 2.5 manner, because I think at that point in time, there are a lot of things that are not clear, including tax deduction. That's why for us is that you bid for the items using our tokens, and then exchange that by transferring fiat money to the bank account. So for us, then that avoids the question on tax deduction, because ultimately what is being transacted is fiat transaction. So I think that is one area that will need to have clarification from IRAS, whether tax deduction applies in this case, which I think will be a pertinent question, especially now many countries are already experimenting, and even some countries already launched their central bank digital currency that runs on blockchain solution, because there could be people who are donating in stable coins or stable tokens, like what Prof Lee shared, and these are classified as crypto assets. So then the tax deduction question will become relevant. So for our case, at that point in time, there's no clarity. I'm not sure whether has that been resolved. I don't think so. Yeah, thanks.
All right, thanks for that. Prof, you have anything to add on that point, or?
Not really.
Okay.
Well, like you just mentioned, is that when you have a stable tokens, actually, you don't really go through the bank, right? So you just have it's very likely that there are a few different ways that Hotlai was talking about. One is that people will just donate to using cryptocurrency to donate direct, and then you can go to a licensed institution and exchange that cryptocurrencies into Sing dollar, and then from a Sing dollar deposit into your charity. That's one way of doing it. But there's also going in the future, which I think will be getting more interesting, which is using the wallet direct. That means every charity will have a wallet, and somebody from US may just donate a stable coin or stable token to you, US dollar. But it doesn't go through the bank. It doesn't go to the US bank to go to you. Or it could be the case that like in Cambodia, it's already the national currency called central bank digital currency they are already on the blockchain. And if you have the wallet, they can just donate to you directly to your wallet. Now that is a little bit more tricky because you still have to find some ways to convert. It's easier to convert at the moment crypto token and cryptocurrency than to convert CBDC on a blockchain for the time being. So these are the future problems that as charity you will have to resolve. But as Stanley said, that you got to start somewhere. As a board, every board is different. You have different endowment in terms of the different directors with different backgrounds, different number of staff, and so on. So you got to find your own path in learning. But I see a question on collaboration. I strongly encourage you in this area because this community of NFTs and blockchain is about collaboration. And since there are so many charities, and by the attendance today to see close to 500 people, all you have to do is have 5 or 10 of you forming small groups to collaborate with each other, right? Start your own working group, three or four in the same. There's no competition in this. The world is where you can raise funds. There's no competition, right? And therefore, collaboration is the way to go, especially you don't have enough resources within your organization. And your organization have a very clear mission that this is what you need to do. But it doesn't mean that you cannot collaborate on learning from each other about blockchain or having a core NFTs program, concerts, NFT together. So there's a way to learn together. By learning together, I think is more important than just launching NFTs, because it's all, I think everything is about journey.
Yep, thanks, Prof. So I think there's a question from Treslin. It's about using the NFT to create a community. I think Prof talked about this earlier. Would you like to spend a bit more time in that area?
I was just thinking very much deeper, and then it came to me that even DBS has got presence in Metaverse, and none of the charities have any presence in Metaverse. And why not have a group of charities having your own shopfront in the Metaverse, right? So that's certainly a very good way to learn and very good way to let the world know. And then you can have your J Chow concert in the Metaverse. You can have your Li Guo Huang in the Metaverse, or you can even have your 7-month concert in the Metaverse. All this could help you to raise Sing dollar, not necessarily just crypto, but of course crypto is much easier in the Metaverse, right? But you got to come together and buy something in the Metaverse to have a presence. And if you look at all the big companies, right, they are already buying places in the Metaverse. But I don't see like Singapore Charity doing that, and that's something that I was just thinking aloud. I do not know the details of how this can be done, but certainly you can form a DAO, right? Again, then the whole world will take notice that not only Singapore is a very important node for blockchain, but in terms of charity as well, you know, then more ideas. The whole idea of what I'm saying is that we need to make it very vibrant so that people all around the world will give us ideas, right? And as a charity, you have funding. You can always have competition, right? Come together, 10 charities come there. We have we can have a competition of what's the best DAO for charity, right? And then all this will help to generate a conversation and learn together. That's the best way to learn, because you don't have to deal with your balance sheet. You don't have to deal with KYC. Here, you just ask people to do the volunteers to come forward to combine your forces to find out come out with 3 best charitable platform for NFTs for the 100 and 200 charities for Singapore. That is something that we can do.
Anything else to add on that, Hock Lai?
This is a question on the community rights.
That's right.
Yeah, I think the best use case of using NFT to create a community, I think, will be the US project called the Bored Ape Yacht Club. So that's how I think I'll answer this question in combination with another question that talk about the intellectual property rights. Yeah. So okay, for Bored Ape Yacht Club, right? They are able to create a very vibrant and successful community, because I think one of the first thing is that they explicitly made all their NFT IP belongs to whoever owns it. So that is very different from the traditional way. The traditional way is that the original creator still retains all the underlying copyrights. But for Bored Ape Yacht Club, right, they allow the buyers to own it. So that spins off a lot of these influencer buyers. They actually create new merchandises based on the NFT, and then that creates even more community around that. So now this Bored Ape Yacht Club is a multi-billion-dollar worth kind of decentralized organization. So I think I mean, whoever asked that question, you can look at this case study. Yeah. So I mean, the way to understand how the IP works, I mean, disclaimer up front, I'm not a lawyer, but what I understand is that buying an NFT is almost equivalent to buying a traditional art, right? You buy the traditional art, but the original artist still owns all the copyright. You can't reproduce it. You can't even display it in the public area. You can only display in your home for personal consumption. So that is an implicit IP right, unless the creator explicitly transfer the rights to you. So in those cases, how NFT encode that IP right transfer, right? Because NFT comes with this thing called metadata. So basically, metadata are extra information that are attached to the NFT. So if this NFT comes with additional rights, right, those rights can be embedded into the NFT. So that is how it is being done. So there must be an explicit process to transfer the IP from the creator to the buyer. Thanks.
Thanks, Hock Lai. I think this is a caveat for all of us, because this is a very emerging and also a progressing topic. You know, we are all sharing more from an experience perspective. Definitely when it comes to IP consideration, please consult the IP lawyer in doing this. When you're talking about the tax consideration, again, deal with the tax authority or your tax consultant. And also, obviously, before you embark on any of this, please make sure you have the right, you know, expertise in terms on the board itself. I think this is something that you know, is important. Well, maybe going back to Stanley again, you know, given that this is also a very progressive topic, you know, in terms of getting your directors up to speed on this topic, what do you do as an organization at SATA?
That's a really good question, because first of all, the composition of the board is made up of a very diverse group of people. So we've got doctors, as you can imagine. We've got finance people. We've got lawyers. We've got even some people from tax. So to get them all on board, I think first and foremost is that we go back to our purpose. The purpose of SATA is not about NFTs or blockchain or all these things, right? The purpose of SATA is to serve our beneficiaries, seniors and vulnerable. Now, the question then becomes, what is the best way to serve them in a sustainable way? That's when we talk about the various sources of income streams, you know, from our operations all the way to NFTs to raise money. And then bring the whole board along this journey by saying that, you know what, in the past, in 1947, when we first started, we used to do these things called flag days. I don't know, some of you might be familiar with this, you know, some of our more senior people here. We basically, it's like little stamps, right? Like first day cover stamps, and then you raise money. And what we did was that we used those stamps to create the artwork in an NFT form. Right? So in a way, we're still doing the same thing. Like last time was a tin can and then you get those stamps. Today, we're using the same artwork in a more modern way, created an NFT, and then raised money using that method. Now, when you do that, you're kind of like showing people the continuity that this whole process is going through. So this is going back to your question, David, how do we bring the whole board along? Now, at the same time, to get people comfortable, this is when the governance kicks in, which I talked about, you know, quite a lot. And this is something very important because to me, if we do not have the governance right from the start, maybe you want to think twice before you embark on this journey. This is not so simple. Let's not kid ourselves here. We're still very early stage. Yes, we want to innovate. Yes, we want to be creative. But do you have the necessary governance to make sure you don't fall into, you know, a crack or get yourself into trouble unnecessarily, right? So that must be in place first. Once we have that, we're comfortable with the process, check with the authorities, then everybody is brought along this journey together, right? Otherwise, you leave people behind, then, you know, then it becomes somewhat not jointed in terms of our direction. Now, having said all that, I think there has to be a spirit of also allowing some mistakes to be made. You know, and again, I'll be the first to confess, I'm not an expert, and neither is the board on this. We're experimenting. We're trying this for the first time in a risk-controlled way, so that we want to get comfortable with it and try it out. And I tell the board all the time, we will make mistakes. But the key is that hopefully it's not such a big mistake that, you know, we'll get ourselves in a lot of trouble, but in a way that's controlled. So then we can move forward. Right? We can move forward. We see this as a huge opportunity. At a very basic level, the blockchain allows this artwork to be authenticated. And now Hotline talks about, you know, when you buy a piece of artwork, it is no different, but that piece of artwork could be a counterfeit artwork anyway. How do you check that? But on the blockchain, as Prof has said also, is immutable. It is there. So at least you get, or, you know, validation that this is an authenticated piece of artwork. If nothing else, right? You get that. So to me, that in itself is also quite powerful if people are interested in donating for a piece of art.
Thanks, Stanley. I think I'll now open up maybe to all the panelists. I think there are a couple of questions, you know, in terms of from probably the smaller charities. I'll probably try to combine them together. I think seems like when the questions are being asked, it appears that as a smaller charity, should they still continue to embark on this journey? That's question, the overarching question. If yes, what are some of the advice from the panelists? Yeah, from a technology, from a risk, from a governance, you know, what is some advice to them, given that they're much smaller and may not have as much as a bandwidth compared to the larger charities? Who would like to give a bit?
Maybe I can start. Okay, for me is that I shared that the target audience for NFT donors are really those who are born after 1980s, and this group of donors, right, comprise of 55% of the world's population. And the good thing about NFT is that it is borderless. So your audience is actually global. So I don't think any charitable organization can ignore this new form of donation. But there are challenges, not just on regulation, but also on technology, and that will pose a lot of difficulties to the charities, especially the smaller ones. So my proposal would be aggregating the demand to have a common platform or even like organizations like MVPC, they have an equivalent of the giving.sg, but it's an NFT platform to make the cost lower and to make the process of minting NFT easier and collecting donation in crypto or in fiat easier for this organization. So I think I mean, to be frank, we receive at least 8 to 9 charitable organizations requests for us to help them with this. But actually the whole exercise is quite tedious, takes up a lot of resources. It makes a lot of sense to have a shared resources to do this kind of exercise. Thanks.
Maybe I'll add on to Hock Lai. Again, without sounding like a repeat mode, I would say that please make sure your governance is in place first. That would be my number one advice. Because as we heard today, this is something that is quite complex, right? So number one is that. Number two is that once you're comfortable, then you can start going down the path of doing something not in such a big scale. I think, for us, we're always on the cautious side. I just want to make sure it gets out the door. We try it out, see whether it works. And then how does that then influence our different sources of funds? Again, Hock Lai talks about how this is international, this is global, and of course, there's also issues around that. We have to be careful about making sure about money laundering and, terrorism financing and all that type of stuff, right? That's a separate matter that we need to consider also. Now, once you're comfortable with the first step, then based on the results, we can then analyze, are we getting a bigger pool of donors? Are we getting bigger tranches of donors? Are we seeing that indeed this is something worthwhile, right? And so again, we're still experimenting stage. We don't expect to raise a lot of money on this. In fact, I don't want to raise a lot of money at this stage, right? I just want to make sure we get the process right. And then the next phase is something that we can be a little bit bolder once we're more comfortable. So for the first phase, not a big amount and something that I just want to get comfortable with.
I rejoin here. I think it's very important to understand that, like Stanley mentioned, governance is very important. You will know whether you are ready. That's number one. Secondly, if you're really having difficulties doing fundraising, then NFT is probably not the right one, because NFT is going to distract you by looking into a lot of compliance issue that you have never encountered before. And since already you're having problem in fundraising, and then if your board do not have enough people in there, is a very small board, doesn't have enough expertise in many different areas, then you are going to be doing a lot more new things that you have never encountered before. Technology rise, okay, that's technology risk management side. You got to spend time understanding the technology. You got to find out what sort of crypto governance that you got to put in place in order to ensure that the regulators are comfortable. And then you, at the same time, you are also executing the transformation of your organization, all three in one. And you're really having difficulties fundraising. You think that NFT is an easy solution? The answer is no, it is not going to be. In fact, it's better for you to start learning together with other and watch other charities, work with them, collaborate with them, and use the technology itself. Use it, apply it, think about using the technology. How can I use this technology to serve my beneficiaries now, rather than thinking about fundraising? Now, if you can click that, you will find that the donors will come and look for you, not the other way around. Okay, so I think the mindset has to be right to say that it's not that this is a magic bullet that you do this, everything will be done. No, it is about thinking of very innovatively, of making yourself known for using this, applying this technology, and people will write about you. People will then say that, hey, this charity is very innovative that it can use this technology to serve a lot underserved. Maybe we should go and fund them. I think that's the way. If you just launch an NFT, as I mentioned, in 11 minutes, I give you the video, you know how to do it. Not that. Technologically, it's easy, but the technology risk is high. Okay. And then when things happen, do you know how to answer for it? Why is it that today Ethereum is slowing down? And you get so many questions from the public. Are you competent enough to answer the questions? How come my NFT is stuck? And taking for 10 hours, I still can't get my NFT. Simple questions like that will take up a lot of your time. So you've got to ensure that you have enough resources, right board composition before you even talk about governance. Okay, having a right composition is difficult enough, let alone to get the governance going, and then attracting the right staff. So by doing so-called the right thing, applying the technology, you attract talent to come and join you because they believe in the things that you're doing. Not just because NFT is for fundraising, cryptocurrency is for donation. That is easy, but it is not what it's about. I hope it makes sense.
I think definitely, Prof. I think we're now into our last 10 minutes. So I'll buy a bit of time for our panelists to think about their last point that they would like to touch on and share with the audience. But definitely what Prof has mentioned, it really resonates with me, and I'm sure the rest of the panelists as well. NFT itself is not just about fundraising. It's not for fundraising purpose. It really goes back to the purpose. Stanley mentioned about purpose as well. But I think the other challenge that, Prof, maybe back to you as well, is that some of the beneficiaries may not be, have the kind of technology background and also the infrastructure to deal with this. So, from your experience, how do the charities then continue to be able to support them?
So I think that is the key thing. Digital literacy is very important. And when you serve your beneficiaries, when you try to use all this technology, journeying with them is one of a very important function of a charity, right? It's not just that I'm going to bring this, but we must leave no one behind when we are doing this digital transformation. That should be one of the important objectives of any charity. And if you look at MES, they have this SME financial empowerment program, not only to empower the SMEs in Singapore, but to empower the SMEs in Ghana, to empower the SMEs in Philippines, India, and also in Vietnam and so on. You can go on the MES website to see that, and Global FinTech Institute is part of this empowerment program, that we design programs to go out to outreach to all these very poor areas for SMEs, and allowing them to understand how to open an account, how to use the digital devices, and at the same time how to contribute data in order to lower your borrowing costs. And there are many cases even that we hear that women open an account thinking that it's in their name, and they work, and at the end of the day, the account is their husband's name. So a lot of such cases of digital illiteracy that will come out when you try to do NFT. So we need to refocus back of what we are trying to do here as charities. Who are we trying to help, and what do they lack? And I always feel that charities means that we fill the gaps. If somebody else is doing it, then we don't do it, right? We do something that nobody has done it. So I was talking to you about some of the pay to earn, models that we have using ape, IP, and so on. We can do the same for charity, and a lot of people have been trying. But the problem is that if there's no momentum from the charitable organization, a lot of these startup, they cannot go. You have to work with them closely so that all your volunteers are recorded. So use this opportunity from my perspective, that journey with the beneficiary and use that as a branding to attract funding, not just use it for raise funding, but use it for doing the right thing, for the right branding, so that donors will come. I always believe that if you do the right things, you don't have to go for donors. Don't go out and look for donors. Donors will come and look for you. I think that's key. We conduct our free lessons, thinking that we all these free lessons, nobody will care. But no, people will come and say, I fund all these lessons for you. And then we can continue, right? And if it doesn't, then we got to think about more innovative ways. So got to believe that what you do, there will be forces out there to help you.
Thanks, Prof. So with that, I think we will do our one round, with maybe starting with Stanley, Hotline, and then probably Prof can close off as well on this. Stanley?
Thanks, David. So I would take one step back. I know today's talk is about NFTs, but for me, NFT is just one component of an innovative culture. And I want to take one step back. For me, it's about in the space that we operate, back to the purpose, it's about healthcare. Telemedicine is a big thing for us. Tele-rehab during the pandemic, when people could not go to the rehab centers, they could do it at home through a console. Or, for example, electric buses that we just recently reconfigured as a mobile clinic, right? Good for the environment, at the same time fit for purpose. Also, we've got a mock-up in our HQ whereby the seniors can try out all the various technologies to help them as they get more senior. So for example, wearable devices to monitor falls. How can they strengthen their legs using some of these advisory services? All these things, I'm just giving you an example, is the culture of innovation that one must have, I think, not just NFT, right? So if you have that, to me, NFT is just a very small component of our overall thinking about constantly adapting and transforming ourselves. Now that we've identified NFT as an area that we want to look into, the next and obviously very important thing is governance. So just to give you an example of how seriously we take this, we have a digital committee chaired by a very seasoned, credentialed digital person. And we looked at cybersecurity. We look at, how do we transform our system to be fit for purpose in the future, of which NFT is just one of them, right? And then, of course, we've got a fundraising committee that look at the process. How do we do NFT fundraising in a way that's consistent with our governance, from KYC to all the people who are looking to raise money for? All these things have to be passed through the various committees and get okay, green light, then goes to the board as a proper proposal. Now, I'm saying this again, not to scare everybody that there's so much work involved, but only because we feel this is something that has a lot of risk involved in it. We're still very early stage, and we want to do it in such a way that is consistent with our purpose, at the same time, deliver the impact. Because as what Prof said, actually, there's a lot of work behind it. And end of the day, you don't want to have your resource consumed by one small aspect of your overall purpose, right? So you got to think carefully first. Are you ready for it? So my kind of takeaway point for everybody is, are you ready for it as an organization? And then second of all, are you willing to commit the resources to do it? So I quite like the idea being mooted here, where I think it was Hotline or was it Prof who said that if there could be some sort of a gathering of resources and say that, can we do it this way and replicate across many different charities? That would certainly be helpful. Certainly, I would have benefited a lot if there was such a, committee or something. I can learn from it. But, learning a lot from scratch took us, like I said, 9 months for us before we want to get out the door with this. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Stanley. Hotline, over to you.
Yeah, David, I think before that, I want to address one of the questions in the Q&A. I think it's asking about the KYC. So for our NFT platform, right, we are integrated with a regulatory technology platform to check KYC. So the usual checks that are recommended by FATF, including sanctioned countries and PEPs. And also these platforms, right, they also have this thing called KYT, know your transactions, because crypto assets, whether it's NFTs or cryptocurrencies, they are stored on blockchain, which is transparent. So all the provenance and trails of these currencies are available, and all these platforms allows you to configure the various risk parameters, so you can decide whether to accept or reject a incoming cryptocurrency. So just to let people know that actually a lot of this risk can be easily mitigated by the available technology already. As for my passing thought, right, I think the key question is that the charities they have to ask is that can they ignore this new group of donors who are not found in your usual place? They are found in Discord, they are found in Telegrams, they are found in places that normally your traditional donors are not found, and they are going to be the dominant consumption group in the future. So if you can ignore, I think you can ignore this NFT route totally. But if you cannot ignore this new group of donors, I think there are risks. Definitely, there are risks and challenges associated with NFT. But I think that those are the risks that can be addressed collectively and collaboratively. I think there are many organizations that can come together and resolve this. Thanks.
Thanks, Upline. Last but not least, Prof.
Yeah, I hope to see all the charities in the metaverse in 5 to 10 years' time. That's my wish. But having said that, my parting wish is that innovation is always right in front of you. It's agnostic of technology, so there are always low-hanging fruits. Every organization is different, but look closely. Whatever is in front of you is actually calling out for you, and then that will actually be a very important journey for you to taking a first step towards the metaverse.
Thanks, Prof. So in view of the time constraints, we are 2 minutes past time. So I unfortunately end this panel discussion. Thank you once again to all our panelists for all the very insightful sharing, and some of them are actually quite specific. Appreciate that. I hope all the audience have gained a bit more understanding on the use of NFTs and digital assets, and also have appreciation about the risks involved before implementing your own journey. Thank you all also for being such a participative audience, for all the questions that come in. We hope we have been able to address most of them, if not all. And with this, have a good evening.